As we discussed in previous videos, MAGA Republicans' baseless attempt to impeach President Biden has gone disastrously, suffering back-to-back-to-back major body blows, such that the two grand inquisitors of this particular witch hunt, Republican James Comer and Republican Jim Jordan, are facing increasing pushback from not only members of Congress, but also the media, and it's glorious. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, we have several clips to play in this video. Again, the Schadenfreude, just crank that dial up. It's like, it only should go to 10, but it's probably going to be about 11. This stuff is incredibly embarrassing for James Comer and Jim Jordan. As a reminder, the two back-to-back body blows, are the fact that the confidential human source at the heart of MAGA Republicans' allegations against the president was recently arrested by the FBI and indicted by a grand jury for making false statements to the FBI in his allegations against President Biden and Hunter Biden. And then he admitted that he made those allegations effectively on behalf of Russian intelligence. Just terrible news for MAGA Republicans that they quite frankly could not afford. So in the first clip, I want you to see James Comer desperately try to come up with some sort of cope as to how this is not a big deal.
End of the day, with respect to the FBI informant that Christopher Wray told Jamie Raskin, me, Charles Grassley, Jim Jordan, was one of their most trusted, highest paid informants with the Bureau for over a decade. You know, yep. At the end of the day, he wasn't an important part of this investigation because I didn't even know who he was. All I knew was there was a 1023 that alleged bribery. My investigations about all the money the Bidens have taken from China, from Romania, from Kazakhstan,
for nothing.
This guy had absolutely nothing to do with it. Crazy. We got a tip. We investigated. We couldn't figure out who it was.
Chairman.
Okay. So note some things he said. Well, listen, this informant, we were told he was highly credible by the FBI. Remember that, okay? And then he says, it really wasn't that big of a deal to begin with. Well, except we have the receipts.
House Oversight Chairman James Comer says he and his colleagues plan to drop a bombshell.
It's going to be Judgment Day tomorrow for the White House.
You have the confidential FBI informant who's basically saying that Joe Biden took $5 million from Burisma.
The informant was a highly valued human source for the FBI.
A trusted, highly credible informant.
A trusted, confidential informant.
They had a credible source, one of their good sources.
Their most credible paid FBI informant.
We have determined that whistleblower is extremely credible.
The details come from an FBI informant who is very trusted.
A highly reliable informant that has always checked out. All the information he's ever given us is checked out.
A confidential human source that had been reliable previously to the FBI. A confidential human source gave credible information. This FD 1023 is damning. I do a podcast 3 days a week, Verdict with Ted Cruz. The podcast has gone into the details.
This is a very crucial piece of our investigation.
A very crucial piece of our investigation, and they wouldn't stop talking about it for 6 months on every Fox News appearance they possibly had. Now James Comer is trying to engage in revisionist history. Well, it never really mattered. It really wasn't that big of a deal to begin with. He is openly, unambiguously lying. There is no alternative interpretation. James Comer is objectively, factually a liar. But it's not just James Comer. Jim Jordan, who, again, much like James Comer, is never shy around the media, seems very chagrined. He's having difficulty meeting the eyes of reporters, and CNN reporter Manu Raju is pushing back on Jim Jordan pretty hard.
About the president's involvement in a bribery scheme now that Alexander Smirnov has proven to have made it up, and it was based off Russian intelligence.
Doesn't change the four fundamental facts. Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma, gets paid $1 million a year. Fact number two, he's not qualified to be on the board. He said so himself in an interview, I don't know, with you or some network. Fact number three, Zolochevsky and Pizarski, the two executives at Burisma, specifically asked Hunter Biden, can you weigh in with D.C. and help us deal with the pressure we are facing from the prosecutor? Fact number four, Joe Biden, then he gets called. Hunter Biden calls his dad, according to Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner. Fact number four, Joe Biden then goes to Ukraine 3 days later and conditions the release of the money, American tax money, on the firing of the prosecutor who was applying the pressure to the company that Hunter Biden sat on the board of.
You said the 1023 is the most corroborating piece of information you have.
It corroborates, but it doesn't change those fundamental facts. So now
but it's not true.
Well, so okay, so the FBI told us that this source was so 14.
Okay, you see what he does. Number one, he's having a hard time looking Manu Raju in the eye, right? He's just ducking him constantly. Number two, he's inundating him with red herrings. He's saying, well, what about all these other facts? Okay, well, actually, you've lied about the facts. Devin Archer never said that Hunter Biden called his dad. He said in testimony that he called D.C., that Devin Archer was told that Hunter Biden called D.C. So it's like third-hand information, and it was never confirmed that his father, Joe Biden, was the one who was called, because Burisma employed lobbyists and PR firms also located in D.C. as well. So Jim Jordan is simply lying about the facts. But again, he also, like James Comer, appeals to the idea, well, you know, all this information was just, it was so credible. The FBI told us to take this guy seriously, except not really. So right here we have Ken Buck, a far-right member of the Freedom Caucus, a far-right Republican. He actually dropped some bombshells too, reminding people that everything James Comer and Jim Jordan just said is an absolute lie.
Well, Caitlin, it's even more of an imagined history now. Obviously, this witness, and we were warned at the time that we received the document outlining this witness's testimony. We were warned that the credibility of this statement was not known. And yet people, my colleagues, went out and talked to the public about how this was credible and how it was damning and how it proved President Biden's, at the time, Vice President Biden's complicity in receiving bribes.
You hear that? Ken Buck is saying, actually, no, we were told by the FBI that these allegations, we don't know their veracity, we don't know their credibility. The FD 1023 form also specifically mentioned that. The damn document itself said, hey, listen, this confidential human source relayed this information to us. He offered no corroborating evidence. We have no way to prove it. But because he's a confidential human source and he's bringing this information to us, we have to note it. This information was given to Donald Trump and Bill Barr's Department of Justice, people who had an absolute political incentive to investigate Joe Biden if Joe Biden was being bribed by a foreign energy company to influence foreign policy. The fact that it never went anywhere should go to show everybody there really wasn't any evidence to do. There was no real predicate. But again, Ken Buck makes it abundantly clear when Caitlin Collins asks him to reaffirm that.
So James Comer and Jim Jordan, they knew that this was not corroborated information, yet they still went public with it, talked about it on television, used it to fuel these investigations regardless?
That's what it appears. I certainly didn't have any evidence.
Folks, this is an absolute disaster for Jim Jordan and James Comer. As a matter of fact, Manu Raju pointed out today, Comer avoided reporters at the James Biden interview today because they interviewed President Biden's brother and wouldn't take questions when we called out to him during breaks. This is a guy who's never been shy about taking questions. He loves posturing and peacocking in front of the camera. To Newsmax, he downplays the reliance on the indicted FBI informant and says his probe is focused on Biden financial transactions. But last July, he said of the 1023 form, those allegations are consistent with the pattern that we've seen in Romania and maybe some other countries. And again, as we played in the montage, he's openly said that it's a crucial piece of the investigation, but now it's not because it doesn't verify his preconceptions. Such that James Comer is now facing calls from members of Congress as well as prominent members of the media and progressives as well to resign from office in disgrace. And he should. He absolutely should, if he had any integrity whatsoever. Leading a baseless attempt to impeach the president of the United States off, now this is the second crucial witness to the Republicans' case against the president who's been indicted. Gal Luft basically was a middleman for foreign arms dealing against the United States. He was also indicted. So now Alexander Smirnov is number 2. What the hell is their strike 3 going to be? So anyway, I love seeing the shame and disgrace from James Comer and Jim Jordan, the shyness, the not meeting the media in the eye, the not taking questions or interviews whatsoever, these two media-hungry losers who are now facing abundant pushback, and hopefully they face infinitely more. Hopefully there are severe political consequences to these idiots who've wasted the American people's time pursuing a witch hunt against the president instead of delivering material results for the American people. I'll also remind you that Jim Jordan has been in Congress for 16 years, and he has not passed a single bill, not a single bill. His job is supposed to be a legislator, legislating bills for the benefit of his constituents, if not his entire country. He can't even do that. This guy is a loser who should be relentlessly mocked and belittled for the rest of his life, and you and I should contribute to that as best we possibly can. Let me know what you think in the comments.